Thank you for listening to PoliticalStorm.com. I'm John Small. We've got a special guest joining us today, Andy Gause. And Andy is an expert when it comes to all things finance and monetary things. And we're going to be chatting with him right now about the election that's coming up. And we've got this guy named Donald Trump that's running. And the topic of our talk today is Donald Trump versus the debt. Andy Gause, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you guys?
Fantastic. We're having a great program here, and we're excited to chat about this because, you know, right now there are people, I think, as far back as I can remember, every election I've ever been a part of has been an interesting election, but I don't think there's been one that's even come close to this one as far as people either loving the candidates or hating the candidates. I mean, polarizing. And when I saw this Donald versus the debt, I was like, I got to talk to Andy about this. So, what is your take on this, sir?
Well, you are right about that. I'll tell you, it's who do you hate the least seems to be the criteria this year. I hate to say I lean towards Donald. I think between his tariff positions, start penalizing those who are unfair trading partners, and his income tax. He wants to eliminate the income tax for any family making less than $50,000 a year. He doesn't think, and I agree with him, that you should be filing a tax return.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense. And then, of course, Donald versus the debt. Yes, I look at our national debt, and the clowns that are running the show right now have put our entire mortgage on the credit cards. So if you know what I mean, they've taken all of the 30-year, 20-year, 10-year debt and moved it into 1- and 2-year maturities.
Wow.
So while that may have driven interest rates down, as anyone who could imagine having your mortgage on your credit card will tell you that if interest rates go up, we're in big trouble. I mean, like huge trouble, because instantly our cost to finance our debt skyrockets. We're at $250 billion a year just in interest right now, and all of the money that's been borrowed from the Social Security Trust Fund has to be paid back to pay the recipients. So between those two elements, 74 cents of every tax dollar is going for debt service. That only leaves 26 cents for everything else.
And that's just not enough, is it?
Well, that's what we spend on defense. So what the current administration has done, they've followed the Doritos solution, right? That crunch all you want, we'll make more.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve just keeps printing money and loaning it to the government. They are the biggest holder of United States debt, not the Chinese. So here we have this group of private banks that are loaning us money, which they create. I got to think Donald would do something about that, too. So there are a great many things about our nation's finances that are not the way that a businessman would do it. And I think given his experience in financing and refinancing and restructuring companies, that he would do a lot of good as far as the Treasury debt is concerned.
Again, our guest today is Andy Gause. Now, you're a numismatist. How do I say that the right way? My son is one as well, coin collector, but how do you say it properly?
Yeah, it's a numismatist. I could have been a philatelist. That's someone who studies stamps, but I'm a numismatist. I study American coins. And as my grandfather used to say, if these guys, meaning Congress, had to spend real money, meaning gold and silver coins, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do what they do. But it's only their ability to cook the books. That was the title of my second book in 2003, Uncle Sam Cooks the Books. They put $1 in two places. Using the government's method, you could save 100% of your paycheck. So every week, cash your paycheck, put it in a box, and mark that box savings, and then reach in there and pull out all the money you need. Just make sure you put an IOU back in the box. And that's what Congress has done. They've literally looted the entire Social Security Trust Fund, nearly $3 trillion. Plus, I found 169 other trust funds. So they tell us we need money to fix our roads. Okay, we pay a gas tax. You would think they'd take that money and fix the roads? No. They borrow that and spend it on whatever else they wanted to spend it on, and then leave an IOU there. So when you drive out and hit a pothole, then they tell you we need to raise taxes to fix the roads. No, just stop spending money on things other than what you're taxing for, and we'll be in good shape.
When are we going to see Andy Gause on the ballot? I'm voting for you.
I don't think I could do the job. I'll tell you, man. I don't know what Donald's thinking. That's got to be one of the toughest jobs there is, everyone pulling against you. And you have as soon as you take office, you have a national debt that you're faced with no matter who you are. So it almost doesn't matter who the next president is, in the sense that the solutions to the problems are big medicine no matter who delivers them.
And it's a thankless job, too. It really is. And one of the things that I see a parallel between Donald Trump and Herbert Hoover. And if you look back at Herbert Hoover, about 100 years ago, he was a very wealthy man who didn't need to, but he ran for president with his own money and utilized a lot of his own money to fix things. And the thanks that he got was Hoovervilles. When things fell apart, things that weren't really his fault, they named it after him. So I kind of wonder if things do happen and they don't go well, do you think we'll have Trumpvilles around the country?
It's hard to say, but you're right. The biggest enemy of Hoover were the central banks, the owners of the Federal Reserve banks throughout the country. And the things that he was doing, contrary to what they wanted us to do, involved pay-as-you-go, not borrowing money, and so forth. Their calls for stimulus were just the same. Using the reference of Senate Report 93-549, you can prove that in the period from 1913 to 1928, the Federal Reserve printed 3 times as much money, paper, as they had gold and silver coins to back it up.
Yeah.
So more than anything, the cause of the Great Depression were the Federal Reserve banks, and certainly not Mr. Hoover.
But he kind of gets the rap for it, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. And when Mr. Trump talks about tariffs, all the economists want to talk about Smoot-Hawley and how by raising tariffs to try to fix the Great Depression, we caused the trade war. Well, that was true, except that we were exporting 3 times what we imported in that period. And now we're importing twice what we export. So any tariff, any trade war that we engage ourselves in now can only be to our benefit.
Yeah.
And I think it's time. Yeah, it's absolutely time.
It's always interesting to chat with you, and I appreciate you letting me continue to call and pester you about things. As far as the election and where we sit right now, do you have any predictions on what you think is going to happen?
Well, I think Mr. Trump is going to win, but again, what he's faced with going in is going to be mind-boggling. And you're going to see rising gold prices and higher inflation and a loss in the general perception of the value of the dollar. And no matter who is elected president, I think it would be worse with Mrs. Clinton, but it's going to be bad no matter who's elected. I have 3 audio CDs I offered to your listeners last time I was on the show, and I'll do it again.
Awesome.
If you call at 800-468-2646, and I have a package of 3 audio CDs that'll explain what money is, the definition of money, who the Federal Reserve is, the Federal Reserve, and protecting your wealth. That's the 3rd CD. All 3 of them absolutely free. Just call us at 800-468-2646. We'll send them out to you.
Andy, thank you again, sir. It's always a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll be reaching out again in the future.
Thank you, John.
And again, Andy Gause is our guest today. Thank you for listening to PoliticalStorm.com. I'm John Small.